Hello, everybody. My name is Bruce Montgomery, and this is my colleague, Tracy Priest.
Hello, everybody.
And we're with The Road to Retail. On our podcast, Tracy and I hope to offer tips, insights, ideas, and examples for how small, emerging, and challenger CPG, consumer packaged goods, brands can build their business. Everything from determining if you're ready to grow, where to start, how to prove it online, how to go about securing distribution at a national retailer, driving your business with the end consumer, and how to go about finding an investor if that's important to you. The bottom line is, we would love to help you be successful by highlighting the many important factors that go into establishing and growing your brand.
Bruce and I have been working in CPG commercial operations for over 30 years, working on brands of all sizes. By commercial operations, we mean sales, marketing, trade marketing, new product development, broker and distributor management, new product development, brand M&A, and financing. As a part of our show, we bring our guests that are brand founders and leaders, agencies, Amazon specialists, sales agents, contract manufacturers, retailers, and investors to discuss their experiences and share their insights with the audience.
To keep up with the show, please subscribe to the Road to Retail podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Leave us a review and consider sharing the show with a friend or colleague that may benefit from the content. You can also check out our website to learn more at www.road2retail.com and follow The Road to Retail on LinkedIn. We would love to have you along for the ride. Big Chalk's Emerging Brands New Item Launch and Growth Toolkit transforms retail pitches into successful distribution outcomes. Instead of relying on a founder's story alone, brands gain consumer-validated proof across product concept, packaging, pricing, and marketing plans. Powered by advanced analytics and real-world benchmarks, it converts big ideas into retail-ready selling stories, fast and in a budget-friendly way. In just weeks, emerging brands gain the insights and credibility needed to stand out, lower buyer risk, and drive shelf success. Ready to replace hope with proof? Email emergingbrandswin@bigchalk.co and start building the story retailers can't ignore. Since 1994, the Emerson Group has been the trusted partner to brands, retailers, suppliers, and the CPG industry. Their people are CPG professionals and omnichannel commerce experts. They have built a fully integrated infrastructure with a suite of services and capabilities focused on launching and accelerating the growth of health, wellness, and beauty brands. Powered by their proprietary Omega AI data technology platform, which utilizes a brand's insights and data analytics to create a brand's go-to-market strategy, optimize their omnichannel distribution, build marketing plans, and optimize supply chain. The Emerson Group infrastructure and capabilities serve brands in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. To learn more, visit their website at www.emersongroup.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of The Road to Retail, where we try to help emerging brands find their way to building their business intelligently. Speaking of intelligent, there's Tracy Priest. Tracy, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Bruce. It's great to be with you. We've got an awesome guest today and so excited. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who we have today?
Well, now we're talking about really intelligent. Folks, we're joined by a returning champion and good friend of the show, Susan Levy. Susan is the founder and principal of SBL Consulting Group, and I've had the pleasure of working with Susan directly several times in the past. So Susan, welcome back to the show, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, guys. I love being here.
All right. Well, that's great. So, Susan, before we jump into the topics today, why don't you just tell the folks a little bit about your diverse background and how you came to start SBL Consulting Group?
Yeah, it definitely is a diverse background, Bruce. At this point, I have a hard time saying I've been in the consumer healthcare industry for over 40 years, which is a little bit mind-blowing. I started my career in R&D. I have a degree in chemistry from Cornell, worked at Unilever, And I was fascinated by the fact that we weren't pursuing science for the sake of science. We were developing products to address unmet consumer needs. And so I started going to NYU at night for my MBA. After Unilever, I went to one of the many predecessor companies to Haleon in R&D, but slowly started to move out of the lab. I spent 8 years there, then went to Warner Lambert, moved into global and domestic marketing roles, spent 8 years total at Warner Lambert Pfizer, and then went to Schering-Plough in a business development role. Of course, Schering-Plough got bought by Merck. I wound up in corporate strategy at Merck and got downsized a little over 15 years ago with a change of CEOs. And I started networking for a job. And some guy at this company called Fleet Laboratories got my name from someone. I know, Tracy, you're laughing. We'll get to that in the Bruce connection in a second. And all
Yes.
I knew was that I wasn't going to be moving down to Lynchburg, Virginia. Um, that wasn't going to work for me, Bruce. Um, so I convinced the CMO and the CEO and the CFO who wanted some help doing acquiring brands that they really just wanted to hire me on a consulting basis. Of course, that's where I had the opportunity to work with Bruce and help Fleet acquire Boudreaux's butt paste and Fazyme and help them divest their business in Spain. Wound up working for Fleet for 5 years, but the phone kept ringing, and before I knew it, I had more work than I could handle, and I wound up hiring my first employee. That was, as I said, a little bit over 15 years ago, and we've continued to grow from there.
That
Well, a
is
couple of
awesome.
quick things. First off, Susan's being too kind to giving me any credit. That goes to my good friend and colleague, Steve Bolt Roof. Steve found Susan and was very persuasive getting us to hire her. And Susan helped us craft our corporate strategy, which was we only launched and acquired brands we were embarrassed to admit we owned at cocktail parties. But that was a fun time at Fleet. And Susan, kidding aside, really helped us learn how to buy brands and integrate them into our operation. So she really played a role in helping us grow. Susan, that's great. Tracy, why don't you kick off the juice of today's discussion, please?
Absolutely. So, with our audience, obviously primarily small and emerging brands, Susan, tell us a little bit, and you touched on it a little bit, but what gap did you see in the market when you started and thought about, your consulting and with, creating this SBL Consulting Group?
Yeah, Tracy, as you heard, it kind of was an accidental start. It
Yeah.
wasn't all that intentional in the beginning. Um, but I think, what I saw was that there was an opportunity for us to help big companies and small companies think about their growth, whether that's organic growth or inorganic growth. And so as we grew, what our proposition really became was, and our sandbox is really we work with companies that sell things theoretically in the front of a drugstore. So our sandbox is over-the-counter drugs, non-prescription devices and diagnostics, nutritional products. And we work with companies big and small to think about their growth strategies. So what does that look like? About a third of the work that we do very broadly is strategic marketing. It's everything from strategy at a company standpoint to perhaps you're an international brand and you're thinking about how to enter the US. Or maybe you want to think about, what are some new claims you can make for your product? What line extensions should you pursue? So about a third of the work that we do is strategic marketing. About a third of the work that we do today is business development. We do help companies acquire and divest brands. We help companies acquire and divest technologies for the sake of expanding in the consumer health and wellness space. Although I do want to say we are not SEC licensed broker dealers, so we get hired in a business development capacity, consulting capacity. And then about a third of the work that we do is switching drugs from prescription to non-prescription status. So when it comes to small emerging brands, there are a lot of ways that we can help them plug the gaps as they're trying to figure out their pathway forward.
That's awesome. I love that. Love that. Bruce?
Yeah, so Susan, you just covered off some of the specifics that you and your firm help companies with. When we were talking earlier about you coming back on the show, you talked about this new service you guys have, DotConnect Express. Why don't you take a few moments and tell us about it? Because it sounded really interesting, especially to a guy like me who most of my career I've been spending trying to figure out how to help companies grow. And one of the things that's always irritating is waiting around for data or then trying to figure out how to sift through it. And before you know it, you've got some like 12 to 15-month timeline and a big bill or two rolling in. And you're like, good grief, this thing's going to die before I can even figure out if it's an idea or not. So talk to us about this.
Yeah, that's thank you so much for asking that question, Bruce. Well, first of all, let me explain that even the name, right? We rebranded about 4 or 5 years ago. And in the process of our redoing our own rebranding, we went and spoke with a bunch of our clients. And one of our clients, who was a VP at a large consumer healthcare company, told us that we connect the dots that others don't even see. And we really have since then carried that as our tagline. And I think we do a very good job of doing that because we see very broadly across the industry. But one of the other pieces of feedback that we also got, or one of the concerns that we got, particularly from small companies, is, oh, I can't afford to hire, a big expensive consulting firm. Oh, I don't have need for some giant multi-month project, or I'm scared of that. And so we created DotConnect Express because we do see that there are a lot of opportunities where we can quickly add value without necessarily charging clients a ton of money and doing that really quickly. We just got a request actually to help a company that's not in the consumer healthcare space understand if they were to launch on Amazon, what would the fees look like on Amazon? What would they have to charge? What could they charge? How does the pricing affect that? How does their thinking about SKUs affect that? How does the weight of their product affect what they would pay on Amazon? And helping them understand the difference between a 3P model and a 3P with fulfillment by Amazon. So, we've done that before for clients. We don't need to completely reinvent the wheel every time we do a project like that. So that's something we can very quickly do for a client. Obviously, the answer for one client on what is Amazon going to cost me is going to be different than the answer for another client because products are different, they're in different categories, etc. But that's something we can do relatively quickly, but we can't do free consulting. But that's a quick Connect Express project.
Well, I mean, that's really helpful, especially with that Amazon example you gave, because Tracy and I have had many brands on the show, and whether it actually made it to the show or it was part of the pre or post conversation, it's like, boy, some of this Amazon stuff, I had no idea. I thought like I get up on Amazon, I create an A+ detail page, I go to Home Depot, buy some orange buckets, and money just falls from the heavens. And you get into the whole thing about crapping out, can't realize a profit. They didn't know what
Right,
that meant.
right.
So that I think that's a really tremendous offering that you guys have. Tracy?
Susan, I just really appreciate for our small emerging brand audience that you were the myth buster on it doesn't cost $1 million to get your services. So I love that.
Totally.
Yeah. So let's jump in a little bit. So you've got obviously a lot of knowledge about consumer healthcare. Talk to our audience a little bit about maybe some of the trends that you're seeing in the marketplace today.
Yeah, we've had conversations with even the big companies on this, right? And you think it really wasn't that long ago when consumer healthcare meant that I have a product that treats certain conditions or symptoms that I sell in food, drug, and mass, that I advertise on television and in print. I mean, this really wasn't all that long ago, right?
Right.
And so, first of all, the whole business model has changed and exploded, right? There are all these different ways to drive awareness, all these different places where you need to have a presence. But let's even talk about what the definition of consumer healthcare means. That
Mm,
has changed dramatically. I think consumers are no longer thinking problem solution. They're thinking about consumer healthcare as a way that I can achieve a wellness state,
mhm,
right? And so consumer healthcare is now, what kind of hydration do I need? What kind of protein or collagen do I need? What are the ancillary things that I need for my GLP-1 journey, right? What do I need to be a well female? What do I need to do to achieve longevity? And so even the whole definition of consumer healthcare is rapidly changing.
Yeah. So one thing that we hear a lot or have heard lately is the merging of wellness or consumer healthcare and beauty. So any thoughts on that, or do you see that? We've heard it, but
I do see it. I think there are bigger trends, but I do see that. But because if you think about consumer healthcare from that whole problem solution thing, right? Consumer healthcare used to be um, what do I need to do to treat my eczema, my psoriasis, my dry skin? And it's evolving beyond that, but also consumer healthcare is about how I feel. It's about how I look. It's about what's going to help me with longevity. We have a bunch of ex J&J executives who just launched this new brand called Doozy. Have you heard of this? Which is now the same high quality science facial products that you use, we're now going to use that same high science to create products for your whole entire body. So, I do see that there is some blending that some folks are starting to pursue.
right. Bruce, anything to add there?
No, I mean, the other thing everyone talks about is, food as medicine and people being much more careful about what they eat, paying tons of attention to dyes and additives and preservatives. And then so there was just an interesting piece of research put out by our friends at Big Chalk talking about the trends of the GLP-1s and the amount of people that are thinking of going on them, especially once the pill is more available rather than giving yourself shots. So, and it talked about how that's impacting certain categories of CPG food companies. So it's all intertwined. And,
And we have sodas that are promising you gut health, right? It used to be I took Metamucil. Now I can use Poppy, right? It used to be that I needed to buy Airborne and plop it into water for my immune health. But now Coke Simply Soda will promise me immune health. So, we're also seeing this evolution of this pill in the aisle that's now in all of the different food aisles. So I agree with you completely, Bruce.
yeah. So Susan, in your opinion, we were at a couple of conferences together over the past year, and we've seen speakers, and I know that you speak and moderate panels around this as well. But what changes have you seen taking place around consumers and their access to consumer health or innovation? And it goes beyond Dr. Google. I'm sure all the doctors love it when someone comes in with a printout. I have Ubangi fever. Have you been to Africa, Bruce? No, then you don't have that. So what are you seeing around the access to information and innovation?
Yeah, well, I started to allude to this by, it used to be you would have to go to Food, Drug, and Mass, right? And you got your information from television and print. And there are so many more places now. So, I can give you the list, but I can get a travel medicine kit from the wellness company now before I ever need a Z-Pack, and they'll send me a Z-Pack and they'll send me Zofran and all these different things. So access has totally changed. There's an advertisement now for Amazon One Medical that says, there's a woman in the middle seat on a plane and she says, my UTI has returned. Nobody's testing her urine. And she gets an antibiotic delivered directly to her hotel room by Amazon One Medical. Don't, so she's on the middle of a plane. So, this whole telemedicine thing has really upended, I think, how people empower themselves to take care of their health. If you feel so driven to take care of your health that you want to totally disintermediate the doctor, you can do that for so many conditions now. So we
Yeah.
have that. We have telehealth. Telehealth. We have I'm sorry, medical spas, right? Is one of the other ones. The number of medical spas in this country is increasing exponentially.
Yeah.
Um, and it is for everything from teeth whitening you can do in a med spa now, but obviously you can get your GLP-1. Even though in theory you can't get compounded medicines anymore, the medical spas can give you your GLP-1s. And they're happy to do that and take care of you. So I don't need to see a doctor for my GLP-1. I don't need to go to telehealth. I just need to go to the local med spa and they'll take care of me and make me feel great and make me feel beautiful too. Um, there's obviously TikTok, and you've got all these influencers, and people are selling things on TikTok. In theory, you can't sell OTC drugs on TikTok, but they are out there. And we've
Yeah.
got influencers who are giving both good information and bad information on TikTok too. And
Oh
the
yeah.
question in consumers' minds is, what do I believe and who do I listen to? So the amount of information out there is expanding exponentially. And I can go to ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is sourcing 40% of its information from Reddit. And you don't know if what's on Reddit is accurate or not. So, it's disinformation fueling disinformation sometimes.
And how the consumer can filter through all this, Susan, is can be very confusing and conflicting. So who do
You
you
mean
listen to?
everything on the internet's not true?
No,
Gosh, I gotta look into this. Okay.
Google
Tracy,
doesn't know everything. So Susan,
Tracy,
I know
carry
you,
on.
yeah, so you have an expertise obviously in the RX to OTC switch world. So tell us a little bit about what's the current environment with RX to OTC switches? What's going on?
So glad you asked, Tracy. First of all, I forgot to mention at the top, we are very proud of the fact now there really haven't been a lot of switches recently. There's not a lot of expertise out there. But if you were to Google RX to OTC switch consultants, you don't have to do it right now, but you can. You'll get some sponsored ads, but typically Google AI will list our firm as the number one resource. So we say that we are the number one recommended RX OTC switch consultants according to AI. So love that. Thank you. Thank you, Bruce.
The 15-year overnight success.
Right, exactly. But we're really excited by some of the trends we're seeing. Now, I don't want to get political. I know we don't get political on the show, but under the Trump administration, President Trump would love to see healthcare costs lowered. And he certainly has been an advocate in saying that he wants to see more switches. He did hire, although now has departed, Dr. Marty Makary at the FDA. And Dr. Makary was also a huge proponent of RX to OTC switches and worked to remove some roadblocks. But certainly one of the things that has been asked for is for FDA to look at how to facilitate the switch process. They've been asked to put together some guidance on this topic. In April, they convened through the Duke Margolis Institute for Public Health a public forum to explore the topic of facilitating switches. And although we saw no switches got approved in 2024, 2025, we earlier this summer have seen two RxOTC switches approved. Nothing that novel. One was different Epiduo, which is a combination of different adapalene with benzoyl peroxide. And the other is from Amphastar. It's called Rextovy. It's a form of naloxone, so the same drug in Narcan, but in really a less expensive, perhaps easier to use dosing mechanism to dose life-saving naloxone. FDA has also talked about putting together a pilot program to encourage sponsors to do more switches. So we're seeing some great tailwinds on this topic.
So Susan, are you aware of any, like, are there more planes on the runway that are where these types of things are, in the public domain, that they're under active consideration, or is nothing really revealed until there's a ruling made?
Yeah, so most of the time when people pursue an RX to OTC switch, most of the consumer behavior studies, the studies around their labeling, that's all private. If they have to do an actual use study, that does go into the public domain, but that doesn't always happen. When they file for a switch, that is private. So often we don't know about a switch until it's actually approved. So these two different Epiduo and Rextovy, nobody knew about it until they were approved. But there are some in the public domain, but I can tell you we are working on a whole bunch that I think would be very empowering for consumers that are very much hush hush right now.
Okay. Do you think with the new emphasis on hopefully safely accelerating switches, Do you think some of them are 6 to 12 months out, or do you think they're longer? Obviously, you're not going to name names because you're a pro, but are some of them close, or is this all like a year away?
Well, that's a really good question. I'm going to take a half step back and explain for the audience sort of how FDA looks at switches, right?
That'd be great.
Talking about a switch, we're talking about a drug that's already approved by prescription. And so the safety and the efficacy of that drug are already proven when there's a healthcare professional involved in the decision-making process. So is this drug right for this patient based on their condition, based on their underlying medical issues, based on other medications they're taking? So the question in FDA's mind is not, is this drug safe and efficacious? The question in FDA's mind is, what happens when we take a healthcare professional out? Are consumers going to be smart or dumb about this? Right? Well, I mean,
I-
seriously though,
yeah, that's true.
will
I agree.
will consumers understand the label? Will they understand it? Will they follow it? And what might be some of the unintended consequences? So, might they be missing a diagnosis for something more serious? Now, I think FDA is much more open to looking at some of the public health arguments behind switches, right? We have 75 million Americans in this country that are living in healthcare deserts. They don't have access to primary care physicians, like literally, they just don't live near one, or they're more than an hour away from a pharmacy. We have 25 million Americans who lack medical insurance. So huge opportunities to address public health, especially when every dollar that consumers spend on OTC drugs, it saves the overall system $7.33, according to studies from the Consumer Healthcare Products Association. But FDA is very concerned about these risks and unintended consequences. And sometimes I think they can be overly paternalistic in some of these risks. So a few years ago, the oral contraceptive Opill switched over the counter, and FDA wanted them to do sort of a simulated OTC study demonstrating that women understood that they needed to take an oral contraceptive once a day. Which guess what? Women know that that's what they need to do to avoid getting pregnant. So I think sometimes FDA can be overly concerned about the risks, but they're trying to be much more open-minded about public health benefits.
Opil is a friend of the show. We've
Yes.
we've had them on. So Susan, I mean it's incredible, and that's a tightrope, man, for the regulators, et cetera, because while you want to be helpful and facilitate elimination of some of those things around healthcare deserts, et cetera, I'm sure that there's some stuff that if it went OTC, if some knucklehead ate like 12 of them instead of one a day, who knows what would happen. So I understand the frustration when people are like, my gosh, this has been out there forever and it's safe. Can't we just get on with it? But then it's like, well, if we have to solve to the lowest common denominator of who might do something stupid, that's probably why it's slow and that gets all the labels with all the warnings so that, people don't go bananas getting sued.
So once you do, well, to answer your original question, once you do all those studies, you have to file an NDA or supplement, and it typically takes about 10 months to get that approved. So
New drug
thank you. New
application.
drug application, you're right about that. But I mean, imagine a world where you couldn't get aspirin or acetaminophen or ibuprofen, right? Imagine that world that every time you had pain, you had to go see a doctor. And yet we know that aspirin causes stomach bleeding. You can OD on acetaminophen and it can damage your liver, particularly if you're drinking in combination with acetaminophen. And ibuprofen, also can cause stomach upset for a lot of people, even though a lot of people take it on a daily basis. So,
Hmm.
all of these drugs are available over the counter and they all have risks at the individual level, but on the, holistic public health level, these drugs are so important for Americans to be able to address common pain on a daily basis. So I can't, and so we need to think about more holistically about public health.
So Susan, with our audience of emerging small challenger brands, what counsel would you offer to a brand leader or founder regarding growing their health and wellness brand? What do you think in all your experience they simply have to get right?
Yeah, so I think the first thing they have to get right is they need to have a reason for being, right? What consumer need are they addressing? Do they have a unique, and I see you shaking your head, Tracy, right? If
Yes.
they're not addressing an unmet consumer need, just stop. Just stop. We've seen so many, and they have to do it without side effects, without unwanted side effects, at a reasonable cost. And we've seen founders who are so passionate about their brands. We
Mm.
spoke to one founder who is so passionate about his health drink, and he believed in the benefits of his health drink, and he wanted our help marketing his health drink. And then we tasted his health drink, and
Mm.
we all gagged on that. I mean, it was bad. It was really bad, but he loved it. We had another founder who had a um, topical pain relief product with a unique applicator. And the burning that we got from this product
Oh
was
gosh.
just, you felt like your body was on fire,
Oh my
Oh my gosh.
goodness.
Yeah.
right?
Huh.
We had another founder. I love all of our founder stories. It was another founder who, again, passionate about his product. He had developed a supplement that he said would prevent recurrence of kidney stones. And he was convinced that this was $100 million opportunity because anybody who had ever had one kidney stone would take 2 capsules 3 times a day at an exorbitant cost, right? And they were big capsules, right? That's not going to happen.
No, 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 no.
So
Yeah.
Susan, on our show, we call that phenomenon called "My Baby's Beautiful," and everybody will love it.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody will love it. In fact, what am I going to do? I'm going to go talk to the manager in my local CVS. And the
Yes.
manager at my local CVS is going to love this so much that suddenly it's going to be in every CVS across the entire country.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've kind of touched on some of the mistakes. Are there anything else that you see founders make other than they fall in love with their idea and it's just the best idea? Have you anything else that you would give out as watch outs, like don't make this mistake that you've seen over your 15 years doing this?
Yeah, I think, you need to be willing to listen to lots of people.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but you
Yeah.
have to have an open mind. You have to listen to what your consumers are saying about your product. Um, because that's who you're selling to. If your consumers don't like your product or if your consumers have suggestions, you have to listen to it. I think people underestimate how important the supply chain is. They know that they need to do marketing. They know that they need to have it in a place where consumers can buy that, whether it's online or whether it's in retail stores, right? So they know those two things, but I think they often uh, miss miscalculate how hard it is to get the products made and sent to the right place at the right time.
Yeah. And
Susan,
as we,
take one. Sorry, Tracy, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Susan, so take 1 second, if you will, and tell the folks the importance of claims if you can get one versus hope, prayer, voodoo, or you hope that, the people know, well, if this has vitamin D and C, it must be good. Talk about claims for just a moment.
Yeah, and let's talk about, for founders, how claims are regulated, right? So for over-the-counter drug products, the FDA does not review your claims, and they don't review them for nutritional supplements either. But your claims have to be supported by credible scientific evidence, and you have to have that support put together, somewhere documented, before you sell your product through interstate commerce. So it cannot be an after the fact. Because if somebody comes after you, you cannot put that claim support package after the fact. You have to have that together beforehand. Right. So and because you don't want to deal with an advertising challenge. So you first of all make sure you have those claims. Um, but how important are they? They are absolutely important. They need to be scientifically valid. I think that they can make or break a product, but you can't overwhelm people with claims either. Right. So one of the other things that we've worked with clients on are if you can say 10 things about your product really understanding not just the top three claims, but what are the top three claims that added together are going to get you the greatest interest. Because sometimes you could have claims that kind of sound alike. And so maybe, claim A and claim B, might be individually your two best claims, but maybe claim A and claim E put together would get you even better interest and reach and everything like that. So claims are really important. And we work with founders to help them think through not only what claims they can make, and of course, for a nutritional supplement, they have to be structure function claims and to be very careful about that. Um, we work with founders to think about how to prioritize those claims, what claims should go in packaging, what should go in marketing. We help put together claim support. But how you phrase those claims are very important too. OTC drugs can, treat and cure things as long as those are allowed by FDA, right? You can't do that with a cosmetic product. You can't do that with a nutritional supplement, but there are ways that you can say things, right? So products for dry skin can soothe and moisturize dry skin that's dry as a result of eczema and psoriasis, but you can't claim to treat eczema and psoriasis. So we work with founders to get those claims into a way that they'll be legally compliant as well.
Yeah, words matter. The other thing about claims that I've found over the course of time is even if you have the ability to make a bunch of claims, if you start saying too many things, first off, people check out, and then a lot of people will start thinking that's BS. This can't do, nine things. It can do, I'll believe three, and then if you want to put in mice type, it also helpful for, but you can't do that. All right, so Susan, you and I spoke during the warm up of you coming on the show, and we said, could you tell us a little bit about your view of a health and wellness brand? What do you see as the pros and cons of them launching online first, whether it's direct to consumer with their own website and or with Amazon versus making the bigger, more expensive, high risk, potentially higher reward move of going direct to brick and mortar retail? What have you seen over the years and what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think over the years, I think that the retailers are expecting people to launch online first, right? They are looking to see how brands are doing online first. If you think about a typical category in a typical retail store, whether we're talking about a nutritional supplement category or a skin health category, the retailer is not going to make that set larger to put your product on the shelf,
No.
right? If it's 3 foot long, it's 3 foot long. If it's 6 foot long, it's 6 foot long. They're not adding length to that to put your product on the shelf. And so to put your product on the shelf, it means they have to take something else off the shelf. And that buyer is trying to maximize the sales per linear inch on their shelves. And how are they going to make those decisions? Well, they certainly want to see what market research you've done with consumers on your product.
Yes.
That's nice. But, they also want to see prior success. And what a great way for them to see prior success than to see how you're doing online. So I think, first of all, retailers are expecting that more and more. But I think online also gives you an opportunity to test out different things. We're working with clients, we're working with bigger, not big, but bigger companies now that even the bigger companies are testing things online. They're spending less to build up inventory. They're playing with their marketing messages. They're playing with new product launch offerings, right? You can launch more products and more line extensions online than you can ever do at retail. And so you launch the line extensions online, see what does well, and then you know where to place your bets and where to go talk to the retailers and have a conversation about here's what, consumers see our product gravitating towards, and here's what consumers are buying into with regard to where our product can go. So I definitely think online is the way to go, and I think retailers expect it today. Bruce,
Yeah.
do you agree? I'm not sure from your body language.
No, no, totally. I was just thinking, usually Tracy kind of covers this off when we have guests. Starting online makes a lot of sense, and we always give counsel to these founders and entrepreneurs, especially if they're not too far into their journey, is it's much easier, as you were just saying, to test ideas of new items plus pricing plus marketing messaging Because, if you misprice something to, let's say, Target, and you call them up after 8 weeks and you go, hey, you know what? I made an error. Can we take the price up $1 a unit? No,
No.
no, that was your problem, not mine. And you can also control all the trade spending, slotting, trade promotion, retail media network commitments, and the what Tracy and I refer to as the financial valley of death of building all that inventory, shipping it. It's in DCs, then on the shelf, waiting to get paid. And if you go too big and you're wrong, that
Mhm.
could be curtains.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, yeah, Trace, anything to add there?
Yeah. So we had, Bruce and I just attended a conference and they talked about uh, TikTok and how 60% of brands now in the health and wellness and beauty space are discovered on TikTok. And one of the participants said that retailers are now asking brands, what is your TikTok strategy?
Yes, which works for health and wellness as long as we're not talking about OTC drugs. TikTok will not
Correct.
allow OTC drugs or medical devices on their platform right now.
Correct. Yeah.
Interesting. So Susan, you're sitting there at one of the conferences and you just finished speaking or moderating a panel, and an ambitious young man or woman comes up to you and says, Miss Levy, I'm thinking of starting a consumer healthcare brand. What are the first couple of things you would tell this person to do aside have their head examined, and do you understand how much money this is going to cost?
Yeah, I mean, really, how much passion and energy do you have for it? This is not a side hustle. No, anybody thinks that they're going to do this as a side hustle, they're bound for failure. I would tell them to think about launching online first.
Mhm.
I would tell them to do some ad hoc market research first, right? Understand, right? We talked about this before. Understand what problem their brand is addressing. And there are ways to do that. So going back to the claims discussion, right? When we think about claims for a brand, we do a lot of digging to see where are consumers dissatisfied in a given category, and does this brand satisfy where consumers are dissatisfied in that category? Because that's what you're trying to solve for. Um, I would test the brand with friends and family, right? You don't want your topical pain relief product causing people to burn up. You don't want your nutritional drink to cause people to get nauseous, right? So you have to be open to the fact that not everybody's going to love your product. I think you need to be smart about where you're smart, and you need to be smart about where you're not smart.
Yeah.
And you can't do everything, right? We talked about there's marketing, there's sales, there's logistics, and think about where you need help and be open to help, even if it's not right away full-time help. Just be open to having help and another viewpoint, and but you have to be passionate, to your point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Susan, one thing that might be of interest to you and some of your clients, Tracy and I helped the folks at Big Chalk create what they've named the Emerging Brand Launch and Growth Toolkit. And for a very reasonable price, it gives you 4 pieces of key data when you start going out to retailers. So everything you said, I think, is perfect. And then this would be like maybe one step up. But they do a pricing study, concept study, they test your messaging and a package design, and it's all in one shot that they can do pretty fast. And people like Tracy, you and I, that have spent a lot of money on market research, the cost and the timing is I was shocked they could do it for that amount of money and that quickly. So there are aspects out there where everything doesn't cost $500,000 and take 9 months to come in.
Yeah, Bruce, you brought up packaging design too. Packaging design is not something that you can get AI to do for you.
Right.
That would be the other thing is it that's your calling card.
Yep.
You need to have a package that works online in a little box, and you need to have a package that works if you get to retail. You need to understand how to stand out on the shelf. You need to understand what are the top 3 claims you want on the front of the package. You need to have your packaging be compliant on a whole bunch of different levels. And it's not something, that would be the one other thing I would tell a founder is don't do the package design yourself.
No.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because we've had many subject matter experts, and when we've asked them about things like, what do you look at first if things are not scaling or growing the way you want? And all of them said, check the package.
Yeah.
Check the package. Because when something's on a velvet pillow at the farmer's market and you can talk to each consumer for 5 minutes, that's
Yeah.
awesome. But when you have a man or woman with two kids in the cart and you're roaring down the aisle at HEB, they better be able to find you because they're not going to spend 25 minutes searching for Bruce's awesome cookies, even if they are awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Tracy, keep it going. We're almost done, Susan. Hang in there.
Yes,
Thank you.
we're rounding third and heading home, Susan. So tell our audience today who's had the greatest influence on your career other than Bruce and why.
Well, certainly, Bruce. I knew you guys were going to ask me that question. And as I started to think, right, 40 years, as I started to think about it, the thing that struck me the most was that I worked in organizations where the leaders set the tone, right? So shout out to a couple of the leaders that I worked with over the years. There was a guy by the name of Morgan Morton at Warner Lambert, Stan Barchet at Shearing Plow. They really set the tone as leaders and not as bosses. And I think that's such an important decision, right? A
Yeah,
leader helps set a vision. A leader removes the obstacles that keep you from being successful. Um, is open, is a good listener, and a boss just tells you what to do. So
yes.
really worked for some great leaders. A direct boss that I had at Warner Lambert was a guy by the name of Randy Yates. I loved Randy because Randy was so smart and he could get anything done and he could do anything. But typically I would meet with him once a week and he would basically say, tell me what I need to do for you so that you can accomplish what you need to do. Right.
That's
And
awesome.
so, really sort of that whole leader philosophy, give me enough rope to try to hang myself, but never let me hang myself.
That's awesome. Love that.
That's great. All right, Susan, this one's very, very, very important. Who is your favorite sports team, brand, or band, and why do you support them?
Yeah. I'm gonna go old school on this one. Well, I can give you two. Definitely music. I'm always gonna go music. I'm gonna tell you Billy Joel, because I feel like his song "It's All About Soul" is my theme song.
I like it.
And then the other one, I'm gonna give a shout out to John Resnick, who's the lead singer of the Goo Goo Dolls,
Oh yeah.
who lives in my neighborhood.
Ah,
And about 3 weeks ago, we got our pedicures next to each other. And I had such a great time chatting with him. So
there you go. Love that. Love
Yeah,
that.
he's a talented dude. That's for sure. So Susan, thank you so much for your time today. How can people get in touch with you or learn more directly about Susan B. Levy Consulting Group?
that's SBL Consulting Group. We are a team. I have
Yep.
a fabulous team that I work with. Last year we did 49 projects for 30 clients. And if you want to learn more about us, or about our new DotConnect Express service, you can find us online, www.sblconsultinggroup.com. You'll have your contact information there. You can just reach out to us directly through the website, or you can email me at susan@sblconsultinggroup.com.
All right. Well, Susan, thank you so much for your time today. All right, Tracy, I hope you're loose. The big
Yeah,
finish, please.
I've been in I've been in the bullpen. I've been warming up. So thanks to Susan so much for joining us today. You were awesome. Great insight. I love that you were a returning champion to our show. So thank you very much. And audience, thanks for joining us today. Please continue to subscribe on our Spotify and our Apple podcast. Also on YouTube. We post every Tuesday on LinkedIn and all of our other channels. And also check out all of our episodes on our website, which is www.road2retail.com. Thanks again, Susan. Great to see you, Bruce.
Good luck out there, folks.